Now we're ready to taper the shape of the subdivision surface model to get that bar stool that has that elegant shape to it. What I want to do actually first is to delete the bottom polygons, and that'll give me a much cleaner edge at the bottom here. The grid's kind of in my way, so I'll turn it off by pressing the G key on the keyboard. Then I'll go down into the editable poly and turn on Show End Results so I can see this as it happens. I'll enter into Polygon Subobject mode, hold down Control, and select all the bottom polygons. Once those are selected, I can press the Delete key on the keyboard, and now you'll see I've got a nice clean edge at the bottom there. Cool. Now what I want to do here is to scale these edges so that they will move towards the center. I'll go to Edge Subobject mode, and I can select that whole edge loop just by double-clicking on any one of these. If I use the standard Scale tool, you'll notice that the Scale gizmo is not really at the center here where I need it to be. And if I try to use the Scale tool at this point, it'll split my model apart. Control Z to undo that. And that'll happen no matter which axes I scale in. If I click in the center here, I'm scaling in all three axes. I could try to scale only in X and Y by clicking on this bracket, but that doesn't actually solve the problem either. Undo that. What I need to do is to move the transform gizmo to the center of the world. To do that, I'll go up to the main toolbar. I've got the Scale tool active, and I need to use the world coordinate system. That's what this pull-down list is here. It says Reference Coordinate System, and the default is View. I'll click on that and choose World. And what that does is it chooses the world axes as the reference for the scale transform. Now, I don't see any change on my screen just yet. There's one more thing I need to do here. And that is this third button over here is a mysterious one, and it's called Use Transform Center. If I click on that and hold it down, I get a flyout. And I have three options here. Use Pivot Point Center, use Selection Center, and use Reference Coordinate Center. The one that I want is the third one. What that'll do is it will use the current reference coordinate system as the position for the transform gizmo. And when I release the mouse on that, now my Scale tool is positioned exactly at the world origin. Turn the grid on just for a second with the G key. So you can see that the Scale gizmo is now positioned at world coordinates of 0, 0, 0. Okay, so far so good. Now I can try scaling this. If I click in the center of the Scale gizmo, all of those points on that edge loop will move down towards the Scale gizmo, or towards the origin. It's scaling in all three X, Y, and Z axes. But what I really want is to scale only in X and Y. And I can do that by clicking on this little bracket here. And now those edges are not moving closer in the Z axis. Okay, so that's cool. That basically does what I want it to do. However, it's not really convenient to have the transform gizmo here down at the origin. It would be a lot easier if I could just click on those edges and scale them around world X and Y just directly without worrying about the transform gizmo. I can make that happen by using the axis constraints. I'll right-click on any empty spot on the main toolbar and open up the axis constraints toolbar. And you remember this from an earlier chapter. We can bypass the transform gizmo entirely and choose the axes that we want to, in this case, scale around. So you'll see X, Y is currently active. Now you might think that that means that I'm scaling in X and Y, but it's actually not quite that simple. I'll show you by double-clicking on another edge loop up here. And if I try to scale this now, it's actually going to scale in all three axes, despite the fact that only X and Y are apparently active here. There's one other little mysterious thing I need to do here. I need to change the behavior of the Scale tool itself. The Scale tool is a flyout. If I hold that button down, I have three options. Select and uniform scale, select and non-uniform scale, and select and squash. The one that I want is select and non-uniform scale. If that's active, then the axis constraints will be in full effect. Finally, I can just click on that edge loop and drag, and there you go. We've got exactly the behavior we needed. We just had to set these options correctly up here. In review, we want to be in non-uniform scale. Our reference is world, and the transform center is on the third icon here, which is use transform coordinate center. All right, so I can double click on any one of these edge loops and then scale it. You'll notice as I do that sometimes the edges actually go inside the model. That's not a problem, that's normal. If I have trouble with that, then I can just go to wireframe mode, F3, and then double click on one of these edges here, and that'll give me an edge loop. And I can continue to scale this and shape it up a little bit. All right, so that's how we use transform coordinate centers in 3ds Max.